Welcome to the Idaho Business Podcast, the only Idaho podcast focused on providing profits for Idaho people. If you love our state and love small business, you are in the right place. We interview local legends, learn business, and have way too much fun doing it. You're listening to the Idaho Business Podcast with your friend, host, and all-around great guy and owner of New Clean Commercial Cleaning, Spencer Ward.
All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode. We are here with Caleb Dimick. He is the Senior Vice President of Retail and Commercial Banking at the Bank of Idaho. Caleb, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for letting me arm wrestle you to get you on the show.
Sure. You'd win every time.
I don't think so. Well, before we get into it, the nitty-gritty of it all, I want to say that we are sponsored by Sensations. They're located in Twin Falls and in Pocatello. They have a phenomenal range of services, from massages to tanning beds to spray tans to your mani-pedis, anything you got to do to make yourself look good for, your family pictures coming up, your vacations. They've got it all. So go there, and they're going to be offering a free wellness visit. So go there, tell them that you mentioned to you, wow, if I could talk today, mention that you heard about them from the podcast, and you'll get that sweet deal from them. Back to Caleb here. Caleb, you were born and raised in Idaho Falls. You went to Brigham Young University for some schooling, and then you finished up at Idaho State University and got your degree in finance, business finance. Right. Is that correct?
That's right. Yep.
Perfect. And along with being in the banking industry for what? It's around 17 years? Am I right? Or am I?
15. Yeah. Coming up on 16. Yeah, you're right.
Okay. 16. You're a big advocate of snowboarding and getting out there in the outdoors and just having fun with your family. So did I get anything wrong?
No, you're doing great.
Good. Okay, good. How did you get the bug that, hey, I want to be in that banking industry?
Oh, yeah, great question. Banking is one of those careers that is known for people to fall into accidentally. They never intentionally go into banking, right? Well, I was one of the few that kind of intentionally went into banking. Ever since I was a kid, I remember having my first savings account, and I was looking at the statement, and I seriously was probably 11 years old. And I just remember how fascinated I was with the concept of interest. My parents kind of told me okay, you have some money in this account and the bank is paying you so that they can have your money. And I was like, that's amazing. That is crazy. And even as a kid, I remember thinking how neat that was. Well, as I grew, I was always kind of interested in numbers. Finance was a little easier to swallow than accounting was in college. And I wanted a job where I could be in front of people and not caught behind a desk or a cubicle all day, but then also be able to kind of, crunch numbers and get a little nerdy once in a while. And the more I learned about banking, I guess the more of a fit it kind of, the more clear it was to me that that's what I wanted to do. The other thing, Spencer, is that I looked at it as an opportunity to live in a smaller area of the country, like in Idaho Falls or like a Pocatello, and make a decent living and not have to be an investment banker in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of really what did it for me at the end, is to kind of go the commercial banking route, is that fact that I could stay in Idaho and then still provide for my family. So that's kind of the history of why I wanted to go into banking.
Yep, I agree. And who wants to live in San Francisco, especially now?
A little bit different over there.
This is the Idaho Business Podcast, so we can talk as much trash as we want on other states. So it's all about Idaho. No, that's fantastic. I like that. That's interesting. I remember growing up, my grandpa always said you're either paying interest or you're gaining interest, and that always stuck with me. I'm like, and it's true. So, what's maybe your favorite part about being in the banking industry?
It's going to sound cliche, but it's kind of does. It's what makes it worth it for probably most of us in the business world, is just the relationships that we have with other people. There's other parts of my job I really enjoy. I love going out and grabbing lunch with a client or taking them golfing, or there's that kind of business development activity is always fun. But it really is like, I just had lunch today with a friend, and he's a customer, and he refers business to the bank. But he's a really good friend, and over like 10 years, we've developed this relationship. And I've gone to his son and his family's activities. I've invited him to things on the bank, and he'll bring his family along. Our families know each other, our wives know each other. And so it's just kind of fun to build those kind of longer lasting relationships that even if I necessarily wasn't in banking, I would still go and visit this guy and say
Hmm.
hello just because I've come to know him pretty well. I think that's really what does it most for me is being able to just develop that. And that's what made this last year particularly challenging. Is it was so cool to see how efficient we could be as an institution in COVID. I mean, I was working from home for quite a few months,
Hmm.
and I didn't really mind it. I was able to be around my family more. But the hard part was just kind of missing some of those connections with a lot of the folks that we just are used to seeing, throughout the weeks as we go about our business lives. So, yeah, that does it for me.
I like that. Well, I did some stalking on you before the episode, and I on your LinkedIn page and stuff, and I heard a lot of people giving you praise for just your ability to advise them in their businesses. And on that note, what would you think? What would you say? Maybe the biggest mistakes, or maybe the biggest issues that business owners get themselves into, or uh, just in everyday business.
Oh, I like that question. What's cool about business owners is that, and this, Spencer, is that you don't necessarily have a boss telling you what to do. And in a lot of cases, that's exactly why you're a business owner, right? Is because you don't
Mhm.
want a boss and you want to be the boss. But what comes along with that is it's kind of lonely at the top, right? A lot of business owners don't have advisory councils and boards and people that are there whispering in their ear, like, maybe you shouldn't do that, or yeah, it's a little too risky. They're calling the shots, and it's usually them and maybe a spouse or a business partner. And so as a banker, I'm not in any hurry to call out a business owner's mistakes, because they are kind of living and dying by their decision making, right, and their ability to execute. So what I feel like though is just a general trend of a lot of business owners, and even myself. If I was to start a business, you just have a lot on your mind of growing. I got to grow. I've got to get
Mhm.
bigger, which to some degree is true, right? We need to
Sure.
make more revenue to better cover our expenses, and it leads to more net income, more cash in our pockets. But I would say that growth is not the only thing to focus on for our business owners. And so, as bankers, a lot of times we are kind of counseling with our borrowers around that kind of principle. And it's not to say that bankers are sticks in the mud and we don't like growth and we don't like risk. We appreciate all those things, but knowing that growth does come at an expense, right? And it takes money to make money. And
Mhm.
so to know what a proper and healthy amount of growth is, and then when to kind of be able to maintain and then continue to make your business more efficient, maybe more automated, like you were talking about, Spencer. You've done a lot of taken a lot of measures to automate your business so that you can keep your hands free to be more strategic about how you do your business. A lot
Mhm.
of business owners need more of that time because they're so busy running everything, running the operation. And so sometimes a rapid amount of growth can get them overwhelmed and put their entire business at risk, especially if they outgrow or outpace their ability to have cash in their pocket, right? It's taking all of their money to support their sales, and they don't have any left for a rainy day. That's an uncomfortable situation to be in. So, but aside from that, there are so many things that business owners have to take, and they just have to live with it. And if there was a manual, it'd be one thing. Oh, you've missed step 10, but they don't. They're just finding their way, and I respect that a lot. And really don't have any counsel to say, what they do wrong a lot. I think they do a lot of things right, and I love that they're so willing to put it all on the line, and just they believe in themselves and have that confidence to go out there in a marketplace and make a living. And a lot of them make a very good living, and they deserve it. They
Hmm.
take on a ton of risk.
I like that. I like that. And I feel like business owners, depending on the day, some days you feel like you're going bankrupt. Some days you think you're on the top of the world.
Yeah, I
And
bet.
that could be yesterday and today. That's how big the swing is sometimes. And depending on what day you catch that business owner, he might be real willing to take some extra risk, or not to take any more on. So it's, I think sometimes you can get almost a danger to yourself if you're feeling real good and you think, I'm indestructible. I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
So I've seen that in my own life too. You just think that, okay, I can keep doing this. And then you get yourself into trouble. Like you said, growing too fast gets people in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. And we
So,
tend to think, the bankers, we get in the same rut where we think what goes up will just keep going up. And invariably, everything corrects, right? Everything cycles. And we're in the middle of a very strong market right now. And bankers, we're making loans, we're making hay while the sun's shining.
mhm.
We feel good about the economy, but we're always kind of looking over our shoulder a little bit, just to try to get as much heads up as we can about a shoe that'll drop, or a turn on the economy. And we're well capitalized as a bank, so we make sure we have a large savings account that can kind of cover us if we have some loans, some businesses that suffer, and things start to go a little sideways. We want to be ready for that, but we also want to be well equipped to grow along with our businesses. So if our small business owners are thinking that way, hey, I'm going to keep a good amount of money, at least in savings, or access to a line of credit or something to back me up, to support this kind of growth pattern that I'm on, and then just be aware that can get away from you, just to kind of keep
Yeah,
that in check. But
I
again,
like that.
hard to know.
It's tough. It is tough. And like you said, I wish there was a book, a guide to, the dummy's guide to running a business, because it would be helpful at times. But yeah, it's, everyone gets themselves in their own unique situations that they have to just, you know, figure it out and make those educated decisions on. So,
Yeah, agreed.
well, with the economy and things happening, this is not a political podcast, but there are things happening in the economy and the world right now. Is there anything that you would advise, the business owners that are listening and business leaders that are listening of, in the future, year of what's to come? Is there something, yeah, you would just say, look out for this, or beware of this? Well, I think we're all thinking
Uh,
it.
yeah, no, great question. And I'm by no means an economist or an expert,
Sure.
but for my 2 cents, what it's worth, bankers, we think a lot about interest rates, right,
Hmm.
and debt. That's kind of the business that we're in, as we provide financing for folks. And this is going to sound funny coming from a banker, but in an environment where there's a lot of cash, there's a lot of liquidity in the market right now. I feel like we're seeing some early signs of inflation, and some of it might just be kind of emotional, like and even supply chain related, like lumber prices is a good example. Well, that's high on everyone's minds with all the construction going on. We're seeing fuel prices kick up. You're seeing various things kind of rise in price, and maybe they'll trickle back down again. But I've been saying it for a lot of years that interest rates have got to go up, and I've been wrong every year. And so they may not. But the inflationary pressure, that's why the Fed is so careful to try to keep that in check, because it does affect our interest rates. And when we're in a rising rate environment, banks actually love it. We do really well in inflationary environments because we can charge more interest on loans, and we
Hmm.
also pay more interest on deposits. So it's good for depositors as well. The ones who kind of suffer are the ones who have a lot of debt. And that's why I say it's funny coming from a banker, but I would advise to not get too over leveraged, which is easy to do in an environment where there's a lot of growth opportunities.
Sure.
Um, but again, you can go into debt. Debt is a tool.
Yep.
Lending is a tool to help businesses grow. And if used properly, a well used line of credit or term loan to buy some real estate is awesome. It will double or triple the size of your business. But if it's used improperly or used too casually, it can get maxed out, and then you don't have any liquidity, you don't have any capacity to get yourself out of that predicament. So I would advise that while times are good and you're making good money, take some of that spare change and roll it into your line of credit, roll it towards some extra payments on a term loan, or just put it into an account, into a savings account, a money market account. You're not earning a lot of interest quite yet, but someday you will. And if anything, it's there as a cushion for you, again, in case a rainy day comes and you need some cash. One thing it does is it'll make it much easier to do business with your banker if you do have a level of cash. We call that liquidity over and above your expenses. If you just have some cash on hand that you can use to get yourself out of a predicament, bankers love that. And so we're going to be more willing to continue to do business with you, even if we have an economic turn, or maybe if your business has a misstep. It doesn't necessarily have to mean death of your banking relationship if you have a little spare change set aside.
I like that. I like that. That's some good, honest advice. That's one of the best advice I've seen so far out there for business people. That debt is a tool, but it needs to be used with responsibility. And that's true. You cannot put yourself in a straitjacket when it comes to maxing yourself out, and then you are put in a corner, and then you have limited moves to make.
Correct. I agree.
Well, perfect. Well, let's move on to the lightning round here towards the end. But the lightning round is sponsored by Dell's Outdoor Advertising. These guys have been in Pocatello and Blackfoot for over better part of 60 years. The Kirkham family, they have been an institution, and they are helping with billboards, traditional and digital. And if you call them and mention that you heard about them on the podcast and say, give me the deal, it's going to be, if you sign up for 3 months, they're going to give you your first month for free or your installation for free for a billboard advertising. So that's a sweet deal there. So give them a call at 208-232-6886 and ask for Rob, and he will hook you up with that. So Caleb, what is the best book or tool/software that you've used maybe just recently or in the past that's been your game changer?
Great question, man. I like asking questions like this too. The book, and this isn't a new one. This isn't some cutting edge deal, but when it came out, I'm sure it was cutting edge. Good to Great has been one of the most influential books in my career. And funny enough, I only read it when I first came on board at Bank of Idaho. So it's only been 4 or 5 years ago that I read that book. But since I've read it, listened to it a couple of times over, I refer back to it, notes that I've taken. I've given presentations and trainings on elements from that book. And if you've never read or not familiar, what it really is, John Collins he's kind of a professor academia guy, but he took a very academic approach to looking at businesses that outperformed the market. And surprisingly enough, there are not very many that have consistently, over years and decades, outperformed the market. There's just not very many of them. So it narrowed his pool. He was able to he had a team of researchers, and they took a very just holistic look at what makes businesses great. And he also kind of does a dichotomy of what are good businesses and what are the great ones, and why are they different? What's missing with just the good businesses? And what it does for you as a business owner is you can take each of these elements and apply them to yourself, and you can say, okay, well, am I taking a hedgehog approach to my business? Meaning, am I just skipping the frills and not getting so distracted by all the different bells and whistles and just focusing on what I do best? And do I know what I do best? A lot of business owners, I don't know if they know their niche. If we can identify our niche and focus on that, I think that's the most influential thing that I would say. Software, I mean, I've got some banking software. It's real kind of narrow, and I don't think it would be applicable. But book reading, I think that's an excellent book to just have, and then just to refer back to throughout your career.
I like that one. Okay, well, that's going to be put on my list now. Got to put that on my Audible. So
That's great. Yeah, highly recommend it.
well, good. So this next question, you may have already answered it a little bit, but what's one of the biggest myths business owners need to know the truth about?
Yeah. Wow, you're asking great questions, Spencer. I love it.
Good,
Um,
good.
you know, I'll address this one just in fairness because there is some truth to it. Bankers only lend to those people who don't need money.
Yep,
That's one
I've
that I
heard
think
that.
everyone's familiar
I've
with.
heard that a
Yeah.
lot.
If you're a business owner, you've either heard it or you've experienced it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you the reason why it's true and maybe the reason why it's false. So the reason why it's true is because people who don't need money are very financially healthy. And so it's not a matter of the banks only wanting to do business with those people, but when those folks come along and they actually need the bank for something, you'll see that banks are kind of tripping over themselves to help those people in what they're asking us to do. Bankers, we're always weighing risk, right? We're always trying to weigh it, then we're mitigating it with some other factor. When we look at someone that just doesn't need a bank, there's very little risk because they can take care of themselves and they can take care of the bank. So that's the truth of that myth right there. The kind of the false part of it or the misunderstood part is that banks don't want to do business with people who need them. And I think that is just not true. Now, I've been at a big bank. I worked at a large national. I worked at a small community bank like Bank of Idaho, and I've worked at kind of a mid-tier community bank in the state. So I've had a little bit of breadth to be able to see the differences in the way banks are managed. And banks have kind of a rock and a hard place. And so we'll commiserate just for a second. I'm not going to get any sympathy here. But the federal government is very concerned about banking. So they monitor us steadily, constantly. Every 18 months, we have a full blown audit where we have federal and state examiners come in, look at our books, and every bank and credit union deals with something similarly. And so there's nothing bad about that. That's the investor, the public person that has money in the bank's right to have that happen. And so we keep their money safe. On the other hand, we have to listen and talk with business owners who have real needs. And they say, hey, I want to start up a car wash. I've got the perfect location picked out. I own the ground. This is going to be great. And a bank will say, have you ever done it before? No. You any financial history? No. Do you have enough money to pay us off if it doesn't work? No. So if we take that story and we weigh it against the federal regulators and the people that have their money with us, our depositors, we have to look them in the eye and say, okay, we're going to put your money towards this deal and you're going to be okay with it, right? And luckily we don't have to do that. I don't know how it would be if we had to, but that's kind of in essence what we're dealing with is we have to weigh the risk of what is needed in the market with the demands and the regulatory environment that we operate in. And so it's important that we make prudent decisions. And some of those include helping a startup car wash. What we'll do is we'll bring a program like SBA or a 504. There's all kinds of programs that help banks do their job more comfortably. And so the borrowers can get to the money. So yeah, personally, I love to help business owners either get their start or grow and just make it work, even if there's a little bit of risk to it or a lot of risk sometimes. And then we'll look for a way to get it done. So yeah, we want to do business with small business. We want to do deals, but we also have to keep this other half of the bank and regulatory neighborhood feeling confident in our ability to make good, prudent decisions that aren't going to lead to a bad situation where we're going to lose some money.
Man,
Long
like
answer, sorry.
No, man, I was just gonna say you've been giving some solid answers, and then this is good stuff for people to listen to. So thank you.
Great. Hopefully it's helpful.
No, for sure it is. For sure it is. Okay, last question. What's one question I should have asked, and what's your answer to that one?
Boy, what? Maybe a regret, I guess. And I don't even know the answer. I'm just throwing out the first thing that comes to mind. I like to do that in interviews. You ask people what their biggest failures are, or their weaknesses. I think for myself personally, what I could do better with kind of the way I approach banking in the community is I think I could take a more of a solid, sincere interest in the person behind the business owner. So I love to go. So many times I leave the opportunity on the table to really get to know the person that I'm meeting. You know, Spencer, who's your family? You know, where are you
Mhm.
from? How are you doing? What are your hobbies outside of running a business? Because these business owners and bankers for that matter, we talk business all day and it's their life. And that's when they go home, that's all they're thinking about. I kind
Mhm.
of turn off. I can do other things because it's just a job. But a business owner, it's their livelihood and they're always thinking about business. So an opportunity for a business owner to really just unplug for a minute and just, you know, talk about the other part of their lives that they love so much. I feel like I could do a better job of that. So yeah, that's a commitment maybe I'll make to
That's awesome.
myself as I'm answering your question. Try to do better.
That, that's fantastic. I always say that about, for people that are looking for accountants, I say, when you're looking for a CPA, find someone who doesn't take the business owner out of the business and that's just not, ones and zeros for him, but he also takes the account of what this person's going through as a business owner and knows how to deliver information correctly to that business owner because you can either walk out of and for bankers too, you can walk out of a banker's office or an accountant's office feeling like on top of the world or feeling like, geez, where's a cliff to jump off of? Because
You're
it's
right.
sometimes it just depends on how they deliver the information. And I've been on both sides of that spectrum and I'm just like, wow, like I got to get away from you or
Yeah.
or this is a great relationship, so
No, that's great. I think right there, Spencer, you gave a great piece of advice to our business owners is do business with people you can get along with.
hmm
You don't have to be friends with them. You don't have to love them, but you got to be able to go and have a conversation and have it be a conversational and two-sided. If it's going to be just a grinding nails across the chalkboard to go see your CPA, you need to find somebody you can get along with because that
that's right.
CPA needs to be at your decision making table. And bankers, same way. I mean, if you're going to be getting hard news from a banker, you want to have enough of a relationship with that person to say, now, wait a minute, how are you going to help me get this done?
hmm
No's not quite good enough right now, mister. What are we going to do? And if you don't have that relationship, your banker's going to get all uptight. They're going to get offended. They're going to get confrontational rather than just saying, yeah, I know, man. Let's look at it this way. Uh, Tell you what, work on these things. Let's take it back around and try again. That's what a relationship in banking or with your attorney or CPA or any partner
Exactly.
is going to do, right?
I love it. Yeah, this is great stuff, man. So, well, thank you for being on the show. And if people are listening and thinking, wow, Caleb knows his stuff, how do I get in touch with him? How do I get what's the easiest way for me to do business with the Bank of Idaho? What would you tell them?
Oh, great question. I want them to call me directly. Call my cell phone. It's
Okay.
208 716 3829. And I'll tell you, Spencer, I'm not directly in a lending chair anymore. I manage the lending team, but I'm very involved with our customers. I'm always going on calls with our officers. I'm talking to people. I love to take calls. If they have a question, even if I can just be a resource, I'll still do it. And I can get you introduced to one of our loan officers. I kind of look to see personality wise and what you're after and what your goals are to determine what a good fit would be with my team. Because again, I feel like we need our folks to get along with their customers.
Yeah.
And so I consider that as I'm meeting folks for the first time. So yeah, feel free to reach out, and I have an email address too if you need to share that. But I think a cell phone would get us there.
Yeah, that's great. Majority of people will probably be listening to this, so a cell phone's probably a little easier to remember. So that's
Yeah,
perfect. So,
yeah, great.
well, I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on the show. We'll have to have you on the show again in the future because this was a fantastic conversation.
It's great. I
So,
love to support you, man.
and no problem. And to all those listening, just go out there, continue to conquer your week. Stay away from those negative people that just want to bring you misery. And just go out there and have a great week. Stay positive. and look for opportunities. Until next time, keep listening, keep sharing these episodes, and we'll see you later.
Congratulations on spending a couple of minutes getting a little bit smarter, having some fun, and supporting the Idaho business community. If you're feeling the love, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you are.